I think we can go live stream. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this management meeting of the Russell Cotes Museum and Gallery. The first part of which, of course, is a public meeting, and I alert members of the management committee that they should exercise the appropriate protocols with regard to microphones so that members of the public who may be watching us at this stage are not have the best audio as well as visuals. Thank you very much. Are there any other matters, Nikki, that I should draw attention to the committee before we commence the agenda?
No, Chairman, it is as per the published agenda with the supplement pack, which was sent last week as well, with the actual final accounts in. That's the only point you might want to remind people is there is that extra pack there. Otherwise, happy to continue with the agenda.
Thank you very much. And I am now looking at the agenda. And Nikki, we do have some apologies for attendance at this meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Mr. Alan Frost, Mr. Greg Irvine, Sir George Merrick, and Councillor Dunlop is not in the meeting room today, but has joined us online.
Thank you very much. I now, as is customary, invite members of the committee to declare any interest they may have. Councillor Williams.
Yes, just declare a member of the Arts Council in the South West.
Thank you very much. That allows us to move to item 3, which is the confirmation of the minutes, which relate to the meeting that took place on Monday, the 24th of October last year. Are there any amendments members of the committee would wish to make to those minutes? May I therefore take them as read and approved? Thank you. That allows us to move to item 4 of our agenda, and that is to consider the financial statements for 2021-22. And I remind members that it is a statutory requirement that the annual financial statements for the Russell Cotes are submitted to the charity commissioners by the 31st of January, which I believe is tomorrow. We need to review and agree the financial statements and the letter of representation prior to them being signed off by the leader and portfolio holder for finance and transformation. At this point, I think it's helpful if you can give a brief summary to those accounts, Stephen, if you'd be so good.
Certainly, Chairman. Yes. Excuse me. Good. The accounts that were issued in the supplementary pack have differed only from the draft accounts issued in November of last year by the inclusion of just under £4,000 worth of income from online sales in the Russell Cotes. And then in summary, it's fair to say, but from what I can see, is that 21-22 is we're back to normal in terms of activity levels in the Russell Cotes, which is say excellent, good to see. In summary, the excuse me, the income went up by over £340,000. There wasn't any grants applied for, so no, there was no grant income received in the year 21-22. That's a decrease from the prior year of £258,000 or so, and expenditure moved unfortunately adversely, increased by £254,000, meaning that the donation from the council BCP was in the region of £645,000, up 175 from the previous year. But to be fair, 2021 is not a standard year to benchmark the activities on. But what I would like to say, well, I should have started with apologies, is that the accounts have been audited by Hickson's, and Nick Hickson is on the call as well. and the opinion of Hickson's is that the accounts are unmodified and there are no issues. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the portfolio holder is lined up to sign the accounts, and once hopefully the committee have signed, have agreed the accounts, then I will get them submitted by the deadline, which is, as you say, tomorrow. But is there, that is a brief summary of the accounts. Is there anything, any more detail you would like at all of anything?
Stephen, as you've pointed out, and I imagine this is something that is coursing through reviews of accounts, nationwide, is that these do relate to an exceptional year during which COVID restrictions impeded the operation of public places. Is it, would you or Sarah speculate how the end of year turnout might have been if things had been as normal? What I'm interested in is really whether the museum and gallery is performing consistently or better.
Sarah, do you have a, you could, if you,
Yeah,
I'm stalling
okay.
for time. Go on, you go first, Sarah.
I think that the accounts are a little bit, they probably create a slightly well, I don't know how to say it diplomatically. It's a little bit of an unusual impression because a lot of the expenditure in that period was actually funded by the Arts Council Cultural Recovery Grant. So although it looks, obviously expenditure is quite high in that period, a lot of the expenditure was on activity that was designated in the Cultural Recovery Fund, and the way the accounts are written, isn't it? The income was taken in the previous year because that was when it came in, and that's how the auditors like the income to be taken in the year that it was to be allocated to the year that it was received. But some of the expenditure carried into the following year. So I think the accounts probably show actually a really good, relatively good outcome, don't they? Stephen, I would suggest, and that the distortion with the increased expenditure was because actually the previous year was slightly the other way because it took the Arts Council funding in that year. So the previous year, I think, suggests that the council only supplied 450,000, I'm sorry, from memory here, something like that, where actually it's the way that the accounts are written. So I think actually it's more even across the 2 years, and actually probably, I think if you look at the words, the text that I've written, you'll see that actually recovery was pretty good, pretty strong. By the end of the financial year, we were up back to normal levels. So I think that's what the figures, Stephen and Nick probably better position to respond if that's my reading of them.
No, you are correct. So yes, the advice from the auditor in the 2021, as Sarah said, is that income is to be included in the accounts in the year it is received, regardless of when the expenditure that the income is received for is to be is to actually happen. So yes, if it's sort of contrary to potentially how you would like to sort of measure your own ins and outs, as it were, but yes, it all came in regardless of when it's going out. I mean, that's a rather a layman's term way of putting it, but Sarah's correct. But in that respect, but yes, I mean, in the income received in 1920 was 514,000, and in 21-22 was 486,000. That doesn't include grant income. That's because that's I feel that depending on the activities that Sarah and the museum are putting on, well, it will depend, I guess, on the grants as well. But as I say, so the income in 1920, 514, income 21-22, 486, and then down to expenditure. Bear with me, excuse me, will be expenditure 1920, 1073, that is excluding depreciation, 1073, and this year equivalent 1111. So yes, I think as Sarah's succinctly
Thank
said,
you,
it's
Steve.
pretty much.
Mohan.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd actually like just to come on the back of the Chairman's question, because with respect, I don't think the answers have actually sort of pertained to the Chairman's question in the nicest way, because I think the answers you've given have been to sort of try and clarify the ins and outs, the sort of irregular ins and outs of the year that this relates to. Whereas I think if I understood the Chair's question correctly, I think it's a question that a few of us have been asking quite recently in many of the organisations to which we're related in coming out of COVID. It's trying to understand, basically, have we got a healthy underlying business? Okay, and it's almost, if we can try and, let's raise this now. I don't think it should be something that holds up our signing off the accounts now. That's the urgent job. But I think it is a really useful question for us to sort of take forward. But in this meeting, do we basically think we've got a healthy business? If it's possible to sort of lift out that one off, what would it have been in a kind of a normal year? And are our margins, in a sense, being protected? Is our growth path intact? That sort of thing. Can we know something of that, or is it something that needs a bit more carrying forward? But it is, I think it's a very important thing for us to know.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's precisely what I'm trying to tease out. Sarah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Yes, I suppose it's difficult because this is the financial accounts for that kind of one period, and it's trying to go back to that sort of 1 year period in time. But I think if we bring it more up to date in terms of the visitor, situation we're in now. So at the beginning of that year, when we reopened the museum in May 2021, where it was, we were at 75% of visitors. By the time of the end of that financial year, we were back up to 90%. And I think now we're back up pretty well to 100%, even beyond in terms of visitor figures. So we are better than we were pre-COVID, and our income levels are 10% up on best ever pre-COVID. So that's partly because obviously we've increased our prices slightly from £7.50 to £8.50 in the autumn, but it's also because we are, I think since COVID, have been incredibly visitor focused. So things like the activities that we're doing, things like opening up the cafe terrace and so on and so forth, have been very much around trying to ensure that what we're doing is what people want. And I think that I think the figures are very difficult, as you all say. But if you look at from our understanding of our business, we would say, and I'll come on to this a bit later in the next paper, is actually that it's obviously not. One doesn't want to be complacent, and every time I always think, oh my goodness, something's going to fall off the cliff, because obviously every time we listen to the news there's something else. But so far the recovery has been above and beyond what would expect. So I think it really is a success story, not to underestimate the challenges that are out there as well. So I think behind the figures is a really good story.
Right, well, thank you very much, Sarah. And I was really trying to give the opportunity, because I know in the conversations we have between meetings, the answer is yes. The underlying business is sound, and indeed we're building an even stronger operation than existed before COVID hit us. Fiona.
Could I just add that since COVID, we also have monthly additional events, which didn't happen before. And so that is increasing the visitor numbers to support what Sarah's just said. But that's in addition to what was done before. So it's widening the awareness of Russell Cotes as well, because they're all themed and appeal to different people. But I help out at some of them. So.
Thank you. I probably needed to add this in under the next item, but I had the great pleasure of seeing a publication which is being distributed, I think, currently, which is by one of our management committee members, Greg Irvin, on the Japanese collection and the travels that the Merton family undertook. I raise that here because I think this is part of the extended reach of Russell Cotes. That is, you know, the reach that goes into the catalogues of other museums and libraries. It's a great work that is both scholarly and very well illustrated. It has a public as well as a scholarly presence. So my congratulations over that. And I know it's one of a whole series which have been produced by Russell Cotes, and it's certainly something I hope we will not only continue with, but expand upon in due course. Now, we do have the benefit of the auditors, and I welcome you. I think it is Nick Hiscox, is that correct?
Excellent.
You have raised some rather interesting points in your report, not least the difficulties you have encountered because the Russell Cotes does not have, for example, its own bank account and various other points which you make. These underwrite, of course, the great interest we have in seeking independent charity status. But before we get into any of that, I give you the opportunity of perhaps summarising some of the audit observations.
Yes, certainly, Chairman. To pick bits, both for Stephen and for us, out of the general BCP ledgers for the benefit of the Russell Cotes accounts and indeed the other two charities. In fact, they're even more difficult for the other two. So that has a time and cost implication both internally and externally, and leads to further audit work, not just in identification, but even to make sure that we have completeness of records. I think this matter has been raised by our predecessor auditors, Grant Thornton, in previous years, and frankly, it is exceptionally unusual to have it done this way. My second remark was about VAT. And again, because everything is rolled through the BCP ledger system, the Russell Cotes does not have its own VAT registration. It's all run through the council's registration. Charities do have slightly differing requirements or legislation for VAT purposes. And I would have expected it to have its own VAT registration. I'm sure when HMRC come to do a little check, they will cough and splutter a little bit because they like to do that sort of thing. But I don't think there's any major issues. I just think it's not very tidy. The last remark was, I think, more telling, which is about the valuations. The big issue in our mind is the valuation of the property rather than the valuation of the heritage assets themselves. And the property has been valued based on the insurance value, not valued by chartered surveyors who were in fact contracted by the council to value pretty much every other asset, including all the other charities' assets. So I was slightly surprised they didn't cast their eyes slightly up from the lower gardens, notice this big white building, and go and value that one too. But at the moment, we have a valuation which is based on an insurance broker's valuation, who is not a competent expert. And whilst I don't think it's been understated, it's basically been based on an increase in building costs, generally attributed to all buildings in the country. And that's not tremendously rigorous.
Thank you very much for those observations. And some of them, well, all of them sort of underwrite some of the intention of moving the Russell Cotes to independent charity status, where of course the trustees will be directly accountable for precisely those matters. That is a little way down the line, but we note the observations, which are not audit recommendations, as I understand it. They are your observations.
That's correct, Chairman. Certainly, I think whoever audits the Russell Cotes for 2023, assuming it does go forward into a new entity from 2024, would be very keen that there was a proper valuation done of the building, ready for the transition.
Thank you very much. I ask members of the Management Committee whether there are any further questions they may have, either about the financial statements or the audit report. Mohan.
Yeah, was any reason given by the council why the building itself was not included in their normal valuation exercise?
Not to my knowledge.
Excuse me, Councillor, I've prepared the accounts in for 21-22. These accounts before us in the same method as previous years by using the insured valuations. But I will take the points noted by Nick and yourself and refer to my colleagues in corporate finance and to see what will happen for the 22-23 valuations.
Just strikes me as something that with not urgency, but something as we proceed on our journey that will be important to get right.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we can note that in the minutes, I'd be grateful, Nikki, because it is a matter that I think will be relevant in the progress of the Russell Cotes to independent charity status.
Yes,
That
it's noted.
Are we in a position to approve the accounts as stated, and moreover the letter of representation that should be made prior to their being forwarded to the leader and portfolio holder for finance and transformation for signature and onward transmission to the charity commissioners? I think there is unanimous approval for those actions. Thank you very much, which does allow us to move to the next item on our agenda, which is an update on progress on the museum's forward plan. This may be an opportunity just to report formally to the Management Committee that the Council did approve the progress of the charity as it currently is formed to become an independent charity and subject to consideration and approval by the charity commissioners and subsequently by an order in Parliament to that effect. And I do wish, on behalf of the independent members of the Management Committee, wish to pass my sincere thanks to the elected members who are indeed the trustees for their support at the council meeting, their support following really a very long and occasionally tortuous period of discussion, debate, information, and in some cases genuine questions of concern, but that has been resolved, and council approval, I think, was unanimous. Good. Well, that does allow us to move to a forward plan, which sort of takes account of that possibility, as well as taking account of the forward plans as they have been previously executed. But this is an update, and I do invite you, Sarah, to give a brief summary to the documents that you've provided us with.
I think Councillor Dunlop's got a hand raised first. Do you want to, is there something you wanted to raise before I start?
Councillor Dunlop, I do apologise.
No, don't worry. Thank you, Chairman. I know I'm sort of away from. I wanted to just sort of, I guess, top and tail what you said. I was really genuinely warmed by those that did speak, how much support they had for it. But I would like to add on record, if I may, that I think what Sarah did was reaching out to them and basically offering to talk them through it, to explain why this was the right path and why we needed to do it, went a really long way for members in understanding. And I think that that sort of translated into the fact that the only people that really spoke were those that had understood it and were supported why we needed to do it, and we had no politicking, which I think is absolutely wonderful. So it was just to really put on record sort of, I think, the thanks from Sarah, the work she did up to that point, and thank her for taking the trouble to reach out to members to explain why we were doing it. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Dunlop, I think we all endorse those sentiments and offer our congratulations and thanks to Sarah Newman.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Sarah, back to you. Briefly summarise the public report which you've provided us with.
Okay, so the purpose of this I'll just explain again. So for accreditation purposes, all museums need to provide what we call, in museum terms, a forward plan, which is a 5-year strategy, often linked to your business plan, might be your business plan, that outlines what you're trying to achieve in the next 5 years. And it's a requirement that that is then reported back to your governing body, in this case, the management committee, so you can track the progress that we're making against those kind of objectives that we will have outlined. So we started this forward plan that we're working to is for 2020 to 2024, and this was I pulled this together with the then management committee in 2019. And it was agreed in January 2020, which obviously is way before, well, just before COVID obviously hit us. And actually, it's interesting looking back at it, you realise that I said then that there were uncertainties around budgets and governance, and that was even before COVID. So it was a fairly conservative kind of outline of what we were trying to achieve in the next few years, with the understanding, obviously, that we would that should governance change, which hopes it would in the not so long too long, that would be looked at again, and there would be a chance to revision the Russell Cotes in that context. But anyway, this is the plan that the team have been working to in the last 3 years, and has really been very good. So I just wanted to go through really, just perhaps pick out some of the not so much achievements, but just the things that are next on our list as priorities to do in the next few years, in the next year really. Would that be helpful? Just to give some kind of strategic overview. That's
Please
what I was
do.
getting.
Yes, please
Yeah.
do.
Okay. So I mean, these tend to be universal, these things, because basically all museums are trying to do the same thing. But anyway, it's really kind of how you put that into action. So the first one was around trying to make the Russell Cotes world-class by safeguarding and investing in its collections, very aware of the lack of investment that we've had in the building. So this has obviously been a real kind of primary objective for us. And as you know, well, as you may know, we've just done a small amount of work on our roof, which was completed at the end of last year and has been very, well, it's been great. It's a very small project, but it's very great, rather dictated by where you can put the scaffolding. So we've put scaffolding up at the front of the building, and we've done a lot of small projects around painting, lead work and carpentry to repair a lot of the damage done up there. So that little project's been complete. And we're now obviously working towards delivering the MEND project, this £1 million project to restore the conservatory and replace all the plant. It's been a very long and process with this, and it's obviously slipped in terms of time because it's the plant, the issues of replacing all the mechanical and electrical plant, the air handling units and so on, is quite complex in any building. But then the spaces that we're dealing with are very, very small, these little plant rooms. And we're also trying to keep the museum open all the way through. So we're replacing the plant while maintaining the environmental standards. So there's been a very large team of people who we've been working with to ensure that we get the best solution. And we are literally I think some of the orders are literally going in today to get that going. So we're still on track to complete it by January 2024, but some of the timing has slipped. So the plants rooms will be stripped from March, and it's being done in a phased project, so the museum will remain open throughout. So there are 3 areas, 3 different plant rooms will be stripped at 3 different times, as designed. And then the conservatory work, that's just about to go out to tender, but we're still hoping that will happen in May. So again, the museum will be remain open, but it will be, we will all heave a huge sigh of relief once that conservatory has been looked at properly. So those are working through at the moment. The study centre there's potential for that to move our study centre, and so we're looking at a feasibility study on moving to a new location. So that's a major amount of work that's about to start. And as ever, I'm always looking out for another small kind of capital improvement project, anything that can improve the offer that we have, as we were talking earlier. All the kind of investment we've done in the new in the upstairs rooms and so on has really paid back in terms of visitors. So I'm always kind of trying to find another sort of small phase of capital improvements that I can fundraise to. So we've made some huge progress there, and also some things ongoing. I'll carry on and take questions at the end. And the first 2 are the major ones, and the later ones are more straightforward. The next one, obviously, we were trying to do in 2020 was improve our governance. And here we are 3 years on, and we have made some progress. So as we all know, the Charity Commission have invited the BCP Council to apply for a change of trusteeship. That has been agreed by BCP Council on the 10th of January. And I've submitted an application for financial support from the Heritage Lottery Fund. And we're waiting at the moment for that funding to come through. I mean, obviously, we may not get it, in which case we'll think again. But anyway, for the moment, we're just on hold on that. So in the short term, with that, until that funding comes through, I'm just doing a little bit of extra consultation to keep the Charity Commission happy. There was a little bit of publicity around the change, obviously, that came out of the meeting that we had at BCP Council, and it's really good just to build on that and see if we can draw out any views, any opposition, and so on. And because it's such a esoteric governance question, there isn't very much at the moment. But obviously, we're just trying really to consult as much as possible to ensure that we are, drawing out any kind of views that there are out there. So I will carry on with that in the short term. And we're also I'm talking to the legal services within the council. We're just trying to get some procurements, some tenders in place, ready to go, so that we can move as quickly as possible. So that is all happening at the moment. As I understand it, if and when the funding comes through, we will then be able to procure legal advice. BCP Council will procure legal advice, and it will be for them to apply for a change of trusteeship. So I think at that point, things will start moving. So they will need legal advice on what that change looks like, what kind of corporate entity we want to go for, and they will apply to the BCP Council as trustee will apply to the Charity Commission. And then, having done that, we'll set up the new CIO or CLG and start recruiting to the shadow board. And at that point, it will become a tripartite sort of arrangement between the old trustee, the new trustee, and the Charity Commission. The negotiations will start. But I think those are the kind of key steps to begin with. And then obviously the whole process, I mean, it's a kind of complex process of legal change, financial negotiation, and organisational change, which will obviously take quite some time. But those are the key kind of phases at the moment. And what I'm suggesting is that we establish a steering group once perhaps we've got funding agreed. And that steering group would consist of portfolio holder, members of the management committee, and key members, key officers from the council. So that's corporate service director, representatives from legal, representatives from finance, and representatives from project management. And they can steer this project through. Obviously, you've got to steer through these different bureaucracies and steer through the council procedures. And as we know, it's been very complicated to get to this stage. So it's trying to get everybody on board so we can try and move that forward. So that's a major one. That's a major change. Do you want to just quickly run through the others, which are much more straightforward? We wanted to try and improve our marketing. That was number 3. And we've done well on that. We've got a new marketing strategy. In a sense, I think that's now in progress, and we have a new marketing strategy. We have a permanent marketing officer, and I think we know what we're doing on that one now. So I think it's just seeing that one through. So that's sort of one that's almost ticked off. The 4th one was around bringing the museum to life, reaching new audiences. And again, we've made a lot of progress with that. And the major changes there, I think, are that we're establishing some focus groups. So we have gone out to the public to ask if people would like to join 3 focus groups, one on visitor experience, one on access, and one on equality and inclusion. And I think on the visitor experience one, we had something like 39 people applying to be on that committee. So this will be a really good chance for us to sort of delve deeper into people's experiences and what they want, and to us to be much more responsive in terms of what the museum's programming and what it's doing. So I think we'll set those. Those should be up and running from February. And we're also setting up an exhibitions committee, which is by invitation, again, just to bring in some broader audience, some more diverse audience, views and voices into our kind of decision making. We've just opened, if anyone's not been yet, there's a wonderful African sculpture exhibition that we've opened in the print room, which we've done in collaboration with Deed and other local diverse groups. So that's what's happening there. Stuart mentioned our Passport to Japan booklet that Greg Irvine, one of the members, has worked with us to produce. It's lovely. And if I'd been there in person, I would have handed you all a copy, but you'll have to wait till the next meeting. So sorry about that one. We were talking about our commercial income generation. And again, we're just really trying to push that forward. As I said, we have seen a 10% increase on income, on direct and secondary income, which has been very, very encouraging. And we want to build on that. So we've got various activities in line for that. So that's all in hand. Partnership working is another major one for us. And again, I think COVID interrupted this, but has also demonstrated just how important it is to work in partnership. So I think trying to produce a strategy on that is one of my next targets. Sorry.
I was just going to say, before we just wrap this one up, to give people the opportunity to, put any questions they may have before they have forgotten some of the earlier points which you made. So are there any questions that you'd like to address to Sarah? Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. It's not so much a question. I've got a statement about the forward plan, some views about it. Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Just Sarah, I think we've seen we've seen this in a previous meeting. There's lots of activity going on in here, which is fabulous. I think the nature of this, just to keep my comment short, and I'd love to sort of carry this on, and that's where I'm leading with this. I hope we do carry this on, this conversation about this forward plan. First of all, I mean, we are where we are, which is we're at the final year of a sort of a 4 or 5 year plan. So by the nature of it, the actions in here are in the next year. So it's got a feeling of the sort of the here and the now about the actions, which is understandable. I think we, in a further meeting, need to sort of cast the view forward again, another 3 to 4 to 5 years, because what is good about this is about the here and now, but equally what's bad about this is that it's about the here and the now. And when we are looking to pitch this document, and please let me say bluntly, a document like this is something that we are using as a calling card when we are going to places, the chair, the board, the various other people, to argue for things like whether it be funding, patronage, whether it be partnerships, whether it be other things. And that's what I think this forward plan needs to start becoming, under three main headings of commercial, operational and financial, for instance, which means keeping the short-term things that we have now, and all of it is good, by the way. I wouldn't criticise anything that's going on here in the short term, but I think there's something now looking ahead over a 2 to 4 year horizon now, and maybe taking the influences from Arts Council and from others, which is what are the sorts of things that are absolutely showing the ambition of the Russell Cotes and everybody involved in it, and frankly, what are some of the things that, whether it be Arts Council, government and others, actually would like us to be mentioning and going for in a document like this, commercially, operationally, and also financially as well. Now, there's a bit of a humdinger of what I said there, but my request is that we just carry this forward into a kind of a forward planning workshop on this kind of thing, which I'd love to be involved in, as you can probably guess. And I think there's let's be very, very bold about where we want to go.
I think, Sarah, it sort of reinforces the very point you're making about, the steering committee, that, we are preparing for a new future rather than reflecting on our past. And that new future, I think, does cover many of the points that Councillor Isgar has raised, not least commercial and operational and financial plan that underpins our 5-year view. That I think is something that will be very pertinent, particularly when Heritage Lottery Fund returns to us with a positive message of financial support.
Yes, can I just say yes, absolutely. I think I have to take your point, and I think this was done as an interim and with uncertainty around everything, and not to justify that, but yes, a part of the Heritage Lottery funding, should we get it, is a whole opportunity to do the visioning around what the next few years, what the potential is for the new organisation, and then that will be an opportunity with a bit more clarity around governance and around funding to have those kind of conversations. So yes, this is just pushing down the line those big conversations that we really, really need to be having. So yeah, I totally accept it. But this is a way just to keep making sure that we're making those kind of incremental improvements, and have got some kind of clarity about direction in this kind of period, which has obviously lasted far longer than anyone had anticipated back in 2020. So yeah, so no, I totally agree and look forward to it. Absolutely look forward to those conversations.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any other questions would like to put to Sarah with regard to this forward plan? Councillor Williams.
I'm the only other councillor, so I haven't got any questions. I just wanted to congratulate you on running a really, really tight ship and what you've achieved over the last number of years, and hopefully will continue to do so in the future, both with BCP and when we become independent. I just think you need to just carry on as you are. I have a suggestion that you might like to consider, and that is a little bulletin that we can put together, either as a little leaflet to give to the public on the progress that we're making, because not everybody reads the paper or knows what's happening, and it might well be a good time to put that in as part of your marketing strategy. Other than that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitney. I think that's an excellent idea, and as members of the public come in through the door to be able to pick that up, the sort of information progress is all part of people understanding where the museum and gallery is going. The only point I'd raise is one I have raised a number of times before. It's less of a question, rather more of a statement, but we have an extraordinary collection, and conserving and maintaining it is not the glamorous part of museumship. but it's a critical part of museumship because it is preserving the very things which make the gallery and museum in the first place. It is burdensome, and I know that that is going to be a very, very important concern as we go forward, because the fragility of the building is also impacting upon the fragility of some aspects of the collection. So I think these are really rather important points about forward planning for the period ahead. Councillor is.
Actually, just as one example, I'd put under the three headings operational forward planning. For instance, in a previous slide, I think Councillor Williams has done the same. The Dorset Heritage Archives Centre in Dorchester, for instance, this is an enormous consideration for them, which is the preservation, the maintenance, the expansion of very temperature and humidity controlled environments. And that's an enormous area for discussion for them and for forward planning. So I think you're flagging actually it will continue to be for the Russell Cotes as well. That forward thinking, very operational. Yeah, absolutely.
Councillor, thank you. Are we content to note the progress which is being made against the established strategic objectives, albeit some historic ones? And are we content, therefore, that this is a satisfactory matter of report, but one that is dynamic and welcomes the amendments and development that have been raised during the course of the meeting? We are agreed. Thank you. Sorry, Fiona.
Right. Could I make a suggestion under 6 partnerships, please? I'm wondering whether it could be added for the future, partnerships with local businesses. There's some quite significant local businesses which may well be interested in supporting certainly there's a lot to be said to support Russell Cotes as a local iconic place of the arts.
Well, I think that's very, very important suggestion. Sarah, I think it's one to note. Councillor Dunlop, was that no, that was a farewell to someone in your presence, right? Okay, we have agreed the plan as presented, and I believe that is the final item for our meeting. Nikki, I'm looking to you. Are there any other matters I need to attend to on behalf of the committee?
No, Chairman, nothing else on the agenda. We need to set, I presume we'll want one more meeting before the end of this municipal year. So obviously we're running sort of out of time. So I think if I can have a quick conversation with Sarah and yourself this week about probably plotting a date, get that in before, say, the end of this municipal year, before the elections and everything kicks off. And then we will look over that period then to set dates for the next year, because obviously they're going to be even more crucial and need to fit in line with Sarah's plans for the externalisation project. So we will look at those, and also looking, because having spoken with Stephen as well, about setting date for this time next year, but a bit earlier, hopefully. So we will plot those dates, and as soon as they're done, we'll circulate those to you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. And I wouldn't wish the meeting to finally end without wishing Chris Saunders the very best for his new future in the Kingdom of Wales, and to thank him for his support and energy and work on behalf of the museum and gallery over the last years. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, on that, just worth introducing Amanda Barry, who's been appointed as the interim replacement for myself. So we're in good hands, Amanda. I'm sure we'll be looking forward to the next some of these meetings and following it through. And I shall be watching it with interest, actually.
Thank you. And Amanda, we look forward to welcoming you at our next meeting.
Thank you. I look forward to being there in person.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance and contributions this afternoon.